This woman cut out fried food, and the pain in her belly went away. I'm a functional doctor specializing in the digestive system. Today's video is going to be about what happens when you stop eating fried food. But more importantly, why it's so important to stop eating fried food for your gut health. So if you have any of these following symptoms, stick around. We're gonna talk about how this one simple thing can make all the difference. In fact, I had a patient come to see me. She was in her mid-40s and she was struggling with terrible stomach pain, reflux, constipation, bloating. All the things that she tried did not work. And in her mind, she thought that these symptoms were just part of who she was. But after watching my videos on gut health, she decided to try something very simple, and that was to cut out fried food. And you won't believe what happened to her. So first, let's take a look at what actually happens when we eat fried food. So fried food is usually cooked in some sort of oil. It could be neutral oil like canola oil or rice oil, but sometimes it could also be animal fat like duck fat, for example. So when you eat fried food, whether it's French fries, chicken wings, fried fish, whatever it is, that's going to load up the stomach with fat. The reason why it tastes so good is because that fat is going to get absorbed into the food itself and bring out those flavors. Now, if you have a healthy digestive system, you should be able to handle this type of meal without much issue. However, if you already have some existing damage or inflammation in your gut lining, then when that fried food goes into the stomach, because of the high amount of fat, the acidic nature of the oils, it can start to aggravate that inflamed area. That means that when it goes from the stomach to the small intestine, instead of getting nutrients absorbed, it's actually going to start to leak out into the abdominal cavity, causing that uncomfortable feeling of bloating, belly pain, belly discomfort, indigestion, heartburn, all these different symptoms that people really just live with and put up with. In fact, there's been many studies showing that if you have IBS, that eating a high-fat meal will actually cause an increase in the pain. Not only that, the other thing that you need to know about fried food is that a lot of times it is processed. For example, potato chips are definitely highly processed. You have French fries where they're usually deep fried in neutral oils, right? Canola oil, corn oil, soybean oil. Not only is that inflammatory, but also the way that those potatoes are grown. They're grown in a way where they're exposed to pesticides, herbicides, fungicides. And then once you cut it, oxidize, it starts to turn brown. So they add a lot of chemicals to keep it looking fresh and white. Same thing with a lot of the snacks that you buy in the grocery store. A lot of times they're going to be exposed to some sort of heat or oil. They might not be technically deep fried, but they either baked in some sort of oil or they roasted in some sort of oil. Even though it says baked, it doesn't mean that it's actually baked in air. Sometimes they could also be baked in oil. The other problem with fried food is that when you deep fry something, for example, the outside might be crispy and crunchy, but inside it might not be cooked all the way through. This is especially true if you go to fast food restaurants. If you order something that's deep fried, chances are they're not changing that oil frequently enough. So you're getting that food cooked in old oil. The oil has gone through many cycles of cooking all sorts of different foods. And now when you eat that food, not only do you have the symptoms of eating the old oil, you also get the bacteria and the biofilms and the residues from all the other foods that were cooked in that same oil. One of the most powerful things that you can do to improve digestion is to keep a food diary. You want to write down exactly what you eat, when you eat, and how you feel afterwards. And I guarantee you, if you do this for even 3 to 7 days, you'll start to notice a pattern that fried food is probably one of the biggest triggers for your gut inflammation. So what does the research say about fried foods? Let's take a look at a few of the studies. One study looked at over 70,000 women over the course of 8 years. They found that women who ate more fried foods had an increased risk in developing colorectal cancer. Another study done in China actually found that eating fried food more than twice a week doubled the risk of developing stomach cancer. Another study done on fried chicken specifically found that the combination of high fat, high protein, high salt really loaded up the gut microbiome with bacteria and fungus, which resulted in a lot of bloating, belly pain, and worsened symptoms in their overall health. There's another really interesting book called How Not to Diet by Dr. Michael Greger. He's a doctor, but he's also an author. And he talks about a patient of his that developed pancreatic cancer. And he started to investigate what actually caused this person to develop pancreatic cancer. What he found out was that before they developed pancreatic cancer, they were eating a lot of fried food, a lot of red meat. After they stopped eating those two things, their symptoms went away. So next, let's talk about the ingredients that are in fried food. First is salt. Salt is used not only to flavor the food, but also to extract moisture out of the food itself, making it crispy. The problem with too much salt is that it can also lead to an increase in your blood pressure. It can lead to fluid retention, edema, and it can also increase the risk of stomach ulcers. Next is sugar. Many fried foods, especially sweets like donuts, mozzarella sticks, anything that's breaded and deep fried, they're going to use some sort of sugar to help it crisp up and also to add sweetness to the dish. Too much sugar is obviously linked to weight gain, obesity, diabetes, heart disease, but it can also increase the risk of leaky gut. Sugar is highly inflammatory to the colon. It feeds the wrong type of bacteria. And if you have a leaky gut, it can start to leak out into the abdominal cavity, causing a lot of that belly pain and bloating that you feel. Then we have saturated fats and trans fats. These are the types of fats that are usually found in palm oil, coconut oil, butter, lard, tallow, beef fat, anything that's solid at room temperature. Saturated fat is actually needed by the body, but too much of it can lead to an increase in your cholesterol levels, increase the risk of cardiovascular disease. Now, trans fat is actually partially hydrogenated oil. And when you partially hydrogenate oil, you're converting liquid oil into solid oil. You're adding hydrogens to the oil. And this is usually done with canola oil, soy oil, cottonseed oil, corn oil. And trans fat is extremely inflammatory. It's worse than saturated fat. It's going to increase the risk of heart disease, diabetes, gut inflammation, and is really bad for your gut lining. When you eat fried food, it's going to stimulate a massive amount of acid production in your stomach. That's because the fat and the protein and the salt and the carbohydrates all stimulate gastrin, which then stimulates acid production. That means if you're already having heartburn or acid reflux, that fried food is probably a big trigger for you. So if you're wondering what to do instead, here are 5 tips. No. 1. You want to eat plenty of fiber. Fiber is prebiotics for your gut bacteria. Make sure that you get at least 25 to 30 grams of fiber every single day. The easiest way to do that is to eat 30 grams of raw vegetables every single day. And also consider taking a probiotic as well, because that will help to repopulate good bacteria and help to reduce that inflammation. Also, if you haven't seen my video on apple cider vinegar, make sure you check that out. Apple cider vinegar is a drink that you can have before meals to help stimulate acid production, to help break down food in your stomach so you don't have that backup of food that is fermenting in your colon. Another thing that you can do is start to chew your food 32 times before you swallow. This helps to lubricate the food with your saliva so it glides down the esophagus into the stomach and it doesn't irritate the stomach lining. Lastly, make sure that you don't skip meals. If you skip breakfast or lunch and then you have a huge meal at dinner, it's going to aggravate the stomach lining. And the way to think about it is when you eat, you want to feed the microbes in the gut so they don't feed on you. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, I hope you're having a pain-free day. And we'll see you in the next video.